Tommy, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm in good spirits. Thank you, Joe.
I want to talk about a couple of things. We are both in the business of helping people solve problems, get their lateral thinking kicking into action, and making their business a success. So I want to ask you, just before we get in, if you tell the audience a little bit about who you are, and why you do what you do.
So I'm Tommy. I help people win over their best prospects in under 2 minutes or less. And I use that mainly with video testimonials, but also a lot of things around talking heads content. Um, I do that I started doing that almost by accident. I have Asperger's syndrome. I'm on the autistic spectrum. I went to school and had the living daylights kicked out of us on a frequent basis. I was quite isolated because I couldn't read people very well and they couldn't read me. And so at some point in my mid-20s, when I was all on my own, somebody said to me, "You're not looking me in the eye, and it's a little bit like I don't know whether I can trust you or not. Even though I know you personally, I'm all right with you. That's the impression you give." And after hearing that, I became obsessed with reading faces, reading body language, reading voice tonality to find out what people weren't saying as much as they were. So I'd go to any event I could, mainly around micro budget filmmaking, where I was involved in. I'm a film school brat. That led to going to the Cannes Film Festival and staying out till 4 in the morning and chatting with people and trying to get them to stay rather than leave. And then, when I ended up in business, I was trying to get people to stick around for longer anyway. I to this day, people don't believe I'm an introvert, and I really am. I have to recharge when I go home. But a lot of people think I'm an extrovert because I throw myself into talking to people. And doing that over time made it so doing that over time made it so much easier for me to read people that when I started doing video, I could, do testimonials really well because all that was interview based. All that was getting people to open up and share their story. And I found out the trick was literally doing that, getting people to feel like they can share their opinions. You know, if you put a camera on somebody and ask what they think, they're more likely to be chatty rather than, trying to get them to say something from memory. So, people would say things like, well, as long as you're not like putting me, the business owner, on camera and you're interviewing my clients, great. Here's some money. And that's how I got started. Ironically, I later on did start interviewing the business owners as well and turning those into introduction videos. But it was all pretty much accident by design. I picked up a skill to survive and it ended up helping me thrive.
Tell me this, Tommy. You mentioned there that, you look at facial expressions, you look at tonality, and you were fascinated in human behavior. What have you learned?
That's quite a broad one. People don't always say what they mean. I mean, that's an obvious thing, but I can't tell what people are thinking. And I don't think it's necessarily possible to tell what people are thinking, but I think it's possible to know when they have more to say or they are holding something back. People betray that, especially the British, because they're too polite. Over in Malta, comparatively, people are blunt and they say exactly what they think. But I think everybody holds something back to a degree. It's like when they tell actors that person's got a secret, or that character you're playing's got a secret. Everybody has a few secrets, and everybody's holding something back. And that is the one thing I picked up more than anything else. And it's trying to find out what it is that is useful.
Yeah, like everyone has, a skeleton in a closet, and some of them can be relevant or not relevant to a business. But why do you think people in business will hold back? Do you feel that sometimes they're not confident in front of camera, or they're not confident in their business, or what would you feel it might be?
I need to think about this one for a moment. Some people will be happy to talk all day about the thing that you want to hear from them about. They just want to feel like it's a safe space. that they're not going into a judgmental area, at least with you. So the more you can make them feel comfortable that their opinion matters and they're not being put under the microscope, and they're able to share their story, the more likely they are to open up. The more you make it feel like it's an interrogation and they're kind of expected to toe the party line to a degree, the more uncomfortable people will get. Look at politicians, for example.
Yeah, well, there's a difference. There's two different types of leaders. Definitely, there's a political leader and there's a business leader. I'd rather be a business leader than a political one. Um, one of the things that you mentioned as well, Tommy, in the beginning, and you're straight up and honest about it as well, is, tactics and strategy is what we call it. A lot of people want to jump out and they want to do the tactics. They want to just have the landing page and they want to have the written copy and they want the video without going in to do the work, which is the essence of themselves and the problem they solve for their business. And sometimes that can be the hardest for a company and take the longest, because once you get them right, you can actually build the tactical part. Would you agree with us on that?
Yeah, I think it's like the difference between going, to somebody who's solving a problem and going and getting a coin operated service. We don't like confessing what's going wrong, too easily. But to the right people, we will do it. Best analogy I can think of is a barman or a priest or a rabbi. You go at those figures and you say, look, my life, it's all going terrible, right? I'm going to lay it out on the table. But most people during the day, you won't say all that stuff to, and a lot of people don't want to face what's not working. They want to kind of push it off till next Tuesday, and then the next Tuesday, and the next Tuesday. And that's why they go to the coin operated service provider, not the problem solver. That's why people go to the pharmacist, not the doctor. Give me more drugs. Don't tell me how to change my lifestyle. So people often won't go for the deep work because it means addressing something that they don't want to address. And somebody once told me, it was a coach that said, only at the point where the thing is so damn painful will they often deal with it. That's the reactive people. It's rare that you get the proactive ones who want to take care of it before it becomes something.
A quick fix is what they're looking for. Do you think some businesses, they want that quick fix, and as you said, you're spot on. They don't want to go through the pain. I learned a long time ago, the easiest thing to do is always the wrong thing to do, and the hardest is always the right thing. And you should start with the hardest the most. But in business, when you're working with clients, and you said before we jumped on the meeting, it's about problem solving. What is problem solving? If you were to say take a stab of it for companies, what is problem solving?
Okay, so when I first started, I used to be called Vouch for Me Video, because it was a play on the whole testimonial thing. And I used to deliver just that, video testimonials. And they would deal with a problem to a degree. But there was always bottlenecks. And 9 times out of 10, those bottlenecks are human made, not like, what's necessarily going on with the world. It's usually like, because this person didn't do something. And there's somebody in the company that didn't use the tool that was given in the way it was meant to. And so often you can sell a product, which I used to do, and I still obviously deliver video testimonials as the core and amongst other things. But a lot of the time, to get the needle really moving, I have to sit down with somebody, and we have to get some coffees in, and usually if there's anybody else in the company who's relevant, let's get a couple of brews in. This is, we're going to sit here for an hour, right? Tell me what's going on. What are you doing here? What happens when you do this? Who's taking that phone call, right? And what happens after that? Once I give you these tools, who's going to use them? Who's responsible? There's a lot of digging in, and a lot of people don't write down their own processes. There's nothing mapped out. There's nothing written. It's like the Maltese language 150 odd years ago, or more. It was a non-written down thing. And what isn't written down at some point is at risk of dying out.
Yeah, I agree, because we're big believers here of system, processes, and behavior. And I think that it's crucial in an organization to have a system and a process, because if someone leaves and someone takes a place, you don't start the engine again. You just want them to take that, like it's like a pit stop and you're changing the driver and a new person comes in and you go, look, this is everything you're doing. Just follow this system, it works. Um, and the more organizations that you probably have in, especially in the small business, I say a lot of them are lacking system, processes, and behavior. And it's not that they don't want to do it, they're unsure on what they are. So, which then brings up a next question I have for you then is clarity. What are your thoughts on clarity? And why do you think that most companies either don't have it or do have it?
No, it goes back to not wanting to sit down and address stuff. We just want to carry on. We don't want headaches. Headaches don't make money. We don't want to look at, we want to look at what's great. We want to pretend things are all milk and honey. Why do we want to kind of like dig up, why do we want to do the washing up? Why can't we just leave it to pile up? Do you know what I mean? So clarity is great. It just means that you've got to examine everything, which means time, which means making people uncomfortable. And usually means that you've got more work at the end of it. And who wants more work? No one.
No, yeah, true. But here's something, right? The stuff that you're teaching people and the stuff that I'm teaching people and organizations for to grow their business, we're not reinventing the wheel, and the systems that we show or the processes that we help organizations with, I would have to say they're around for decades. And I always wonder, if they've been around for decades, what is the issue of why companies aren't using them from the start?
Maybe somebody could collect 10 crisp. I was going to say, maybe somebody can collect 10 crisp packets and start a business. Do you know what I mean? The bar is not necessarily that high. People don't get formal training in this stuff. Just because you can play the guitar don't mean you can manage a band. These skills are not native. They're not taught in school. In fact, it's almost like people don't want those skills taught in school. They want worker drones. These are not things that are just people come with and leave, and go into the world being able to do. And at some point, you got to sit down and go, right, what don't I know? I don't know how to manage people. I don't know how to, check on the business every now and then. I don't know anything about marketing. And to be fair, all this stuff is overwhelming. There's stuff I don't get done. There's stuff I have to call in other people to help with because I don't like doing it. But at some point, we're not. I'm not a native business owner. I was a film school brat, a failed one. And one day I was taking portraits of actors and failing to run that business properly, and now I'm running this one properly. You know what I mean? I did it through failure. So most times people probably haven't crashed and burned once and learned from it. The smart ones will learn, the other ones will get a job.
Yeah, it's entrepreneurship. It's definitely not for the faint-hearted, Tommy. Do you know the one thing? It's like I was speaking to someone there a couple of months ago. We were interviewing them, and they were talking about leadership, and they've written multiple books on lead. No, they said there's multiple books written on leadership, and every year there's more books, but we never seem to get it right. So, in business strategy and business school, I think that you could read all the books that you want, but I think you only really get a deeper understanding by doing it, by testing the market. It's like you said to me there, you sit down with people and you interview them to get the best out of their testimonial for their business. So is that not the same thing for an entrepreneur who's starting off, who basically has to go through the pain points to discover what they're really about?
Could you forgive me if I didn't quite, maybe I'll struggle with the abstract sometimes. Could you draw the comparison a little tighter for me?
Okay. So in leadership, in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
You could read all the books that you want, but doing it sometimes may need to be so you actually get a better results. So
Got you.
doing instead of reading.
We're creatures of habit, aren't we? It's the same reason why we get, it's the same reason that we, excuse me, I've just been hit with a ton of sand. It's the Saharan winds today, you know. It's to answer your question, it's the same reason why we probably put on another episode of Bridgerton or whatever we're watching, right? Instead of going to bed, as it is, as it is we're addicted to reading books, and it's easier to read another book than actually set something up in the business. Anybody can be a business owner now. It goes back to collecting 10 crisp packets. Just because you can set up a business and you can file at company's house doesn't actually mean you're competent or you've got the attitude to run one. I say this, hands on the table or cards on the table. I've got no kids. I've got no dependents. I've known how to live frugally, right? And if I'd have been in a different position, maybe I would have folded. I don't know, but a lot of the time, certain things need doing. And as creatures of habit, we tend not to do them. We tend to let the washing pile high, we tend to put off the things that we want to put off because that's what people do. There's no test, of habit that made you a business owner. It's just something that people go, oh, I want to do that. It's like people doing coaching, like wanting to be coaches and saying, oh, I've given some good advice to people. I'll be a coach. And actually, there's a lot more to it than that. But people get romanticized about the idea. Years ago, one of my friends went and went to some investors and got some money off them. And they were, God bless them, they were my friend, but they were an absolutely pitiful case. And to this day, I have no idea how somebody gave them money. They just had a bit of social charm or whatever. But people get given money when they have no competent skills. They're just like, they're friends and they're in the clique. Do you know what I mean? So there's no, like we see all these business owners, but there's actually no brutal cutoff point to say that you show the metal to, run a business and you don't.
Well, yeah, about 80% of businesses fail in the first couple of years anyway. And there's sort of marker points. You have 5 years and then you have 10 years, believe it or not. And a lot of people think it's, as you said there, crisp packets. I would use the analogy, build a website and suddenly they think they're in business. So what would you say to your younger self if you were starting off fresh again? Tommy, we're going to give you a magic wand. Ta-da! You are now in your late 20s and you're going to be an entrepreneur. What have you learned in the last decade or so to, and here you are, start off again? What would you do?
Sleep more. Can't stress that one enough. It's tied to health. It's tied to, good living. And I think if you don't sleep enough, you'll pay a price.
Sleep, eat healthy. I was speaking to someone this morning and they asked me when was the last time I was at a doctor. I don't know, 13 years ago. And they nearly died when I said it to them because of exercise, eating healthy, and sleeping. But
Go on, sorry.
But from a business point of view, what advice would you give someone from a business point of view that was starting off? If you were starting off or someone was starting off in a business and they had an idea, say they have an idea here, right? What would be the advice that you'd give them?
This was some really good advice from somebody called Krista Mollion, and I wish I'd had it a long time ago. And I'm a bit too stubborn to take a second job, although ironically, I did a lot of 0 hours contract work anyhow. And that was to not do
Watch that
cheap
fan
work.
behind you.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what he's up to, excuse me. Sorry, he's not knocking me over.
Okay.
So these virtual backgrounds, they make life interesting. So no, to what you were saying, somebody called Krista Mollion gave some advice. She published it, and that was to not go with the person who pays cheap and then get a lot of people from their network who pay cheap. You know, she told the story of a cleaner who waited and waited and waited until she got into a particularly wealthy area. And then as soon as people saw her in that wealthy area, you know, doing the cleaning work, then all the neighbors came to her as well. But she didn't take cheap jobs underneath, you know, in other neighborhoods. In the meantime, you know, she just waited and waited until she got that one golden job and then used it to get more. And in the past, I kept doing so many cheap deals, you know. I'm probably not working on the side enough because I was having to make decisions out of being broke rather than, you know, what is the best way to handle my market and to get the right kind of clients in. So I made decisions based upon being broke and being fearful of not having money rather than who do I want to be working with? How are they going to treat us? Because a lot of people forget that if you get a bargain hunter, they're probably going to be a slave driver and a troublemaker, and they're going to feel like they own your backside. And that's how they're going to behave towards you. And I ended up with a load of those people. So I would have held out for people who paid us properly because they tend to be a joy to work with.
But also, I think when companies are starting off, there is a fine line between taking money because you need it to survive,
yeah,
or holding out for that job. But I agree with you 100%. Years ago, we put a quote into an organization, and it was money that was going to solve all our financial problems. And we looked at the money, looked at the client, and said no. Because we realized that if we had taken on the client, they would have owned us and we would have been their employee. And the anxiety and the stress and the hardship that would have went through that for months would have probably, the business could have folded. But by saying no, holding off and waiting for someone else to come along was a hard decision, but it was the right decision to make. So I agree with you 100% on it. And I think when you're speaking to a new client, we do as well. We're sort of interviewing them to see, is there tonality? Is there, you know, the rapport? Is there, you know, would you be able to work with this person? Because, you know, there's so much people out there and there's so much business out there as well. You don't want to be working with an asshole.
No. And I found that the clients that have your back and want to see you succeed as much as they do, will introduce you to more of the same and support your business. I got a flag in the post. I'm a Leeds United fan, as probably most people have picked up on. And one of my own clients saw that. Actually a Malta supporters club, Leeds flag, and sent it to my address and goes up. I don't know how many people do that. And he's paying me to help him out. You know, these are the kind of people I get to work with. In regards to what you were saying earlier about, you know, like deciding whether you're going to hold out for the client who pays the proper money. I've been in a position where I've said to people, look, I will do you what I call like a test case rate. So we are testing this system out. You get a reduced rate. You do not tell a soul. And if you do, we stop working with you. And we're only doing it for like one or two people. So we can find out how we can tweak and improve the system. But nobody knows about it. And if they do, I know that they came from you. Not in those kind of cloak and dagger terms, if you know what I mean. But that's how I kind of sometimes kept myself going in earlier days, just so I could build systems properly. And sometimes when I do test something new and I need to know it's working on firing on all cylinders, and I've found extra ways to put value in there, you know, I'll offer it at that. But I haven't done that for a good while. So that's how I usually, you know, kept food on the table when I was figuring stuff out. But most of the time I'd said to people, look, I don't need the money that bad. When I've needed to, I've lived frugally, you know, and no one's, you know, holding anything over us. So I could make sure I got my proper rate. And in the end, I did. It took about a year actually to get the amount of money I was asking for. But once I worked with one person, I knew that marker was possible to hit, and their network would be similar, like-minded people.
Yeah, definitely. We believe once you get two or three people in that price range, then and it's about increasing it then as well. But it's everything is about tweaking, testing, tweaking. As myself and my partner in business say, there's no such thing as great marketers, there's great testers. And I think that's where a lot of people believe that they might just run out and run a Facebook ad or might try something and go, oh, it's not working. They're not going back and analyzing to go, okay, why did that not work? What are the metrics in that? And then making changes to see how it will work. Do you do a lot of testing yourself?
Yeah. And I think you've described the difference between people who are looking to improve all the time and people who are looking for silver bullets.
Quick fix, yeah.
Like if I fix this, all my troubles will go away and I'll never have to talk to anybody about marketing again, as opposed to the people who put, like, say, 10% of their money towards getting great clients in. Whatever it is, that's a resource. It's ring fenced. It's important, and they're always trying to find another way to improve the system, or to get more out of what they're getting. And they're willing to put a little bit aside to do that, or to get the right people in. But some people go, as long as I get this one Facebook ad to work, I will never have to worry about this problem again. And those are the people who are usually worried about their lights being switched off next month, as opposed to the people who are trying to, build a house that powers more luxurious items.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's the do I want to? It's fixing that small problem now. It's like putting a band-aid on something, isn't it? That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, it's putting a band-aid on it.
Indeed.
Video. That's what you're specializing in now. And video can be brilliant. I think is that a fake background that you have in the background there? Or is that real?
No. As you've seen a few times, we've had vans pull up. We've had dogs running across and ducks and God knows what. This is home. This is literally a minute from where I live.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, it's very impressive. But video testimonials, is that what you're specializing in now? Because, I always believe that, a picture can paint 1,000 words, but a video can paint 1,000,000. And you get the person's tonality and you get them to open up on it as well. So, of I know you're biased, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you think it is to have a testimonial video from clients?
Well, some testimonials are more equal than others. So just because you've got one client saying something doesn't make it just as good as somebody else who's got another client saying something. Standards matter more than volume. You can have 30 clients all saying mediocre stuff, but when you've got one client saying that they have had their business changed, that makes an impact on the right people. And I've seen that, So having great testimonials matters. Showing the long-term outcomes that you've delivered for people really matters. And the reason it matters is that, we're all chasing better clients. We're all chasing a better quality of business. And the less high quality testimonials that you have, especially of a video nature, then the more work you're going to have to do to get them. The more money you're going to have to spend on those Facebook ads. The more referrals you're going to need till one gets through. The more slave drivers and bargain hunters and troublemakers you're going to have to talk to before you find, the ideal client. The more time it's going to take to get them on board. The wider you're going to have to cast your net, the more work you're just going to have to do in general. A good testimonial can double the results and slash the time many times over. So that's why they matter.
So what's a no-no in your eyes for a video testimonial?
One's where you've nudged people to say what you wanted to hear. And I've seen it being done, and they look like hostage victims on North Korean TV. Right? Like, I am very happy with the way I've been treated. Do you know what I mean? It's no good. And people can tell it's not real. People just want to share their story. And in fact, if you're open enough to ask, unique and useful questions that get people to share their version of events, they will tell it and in a way that everybody will see as real, and will share things that you didn't even know that matter to them, which will get more clients coming to you and the kind of clients you want.
But in a video, is it important then that you have, good quality sound? Does the background have to be right? Does the person have to speak clear? Like what cues you've worked in video production for a long time. What sort of cues do you look for when you're sort of getting that testimonial that's right? Like, is the background image very important to the background drop important and everything as well?
Well, this is ironic given where I'm sat right now, but normally I'd say to people, if you're filming a video testimonial and being real matters, it does, then indoors, plain background, right? Don't worry about how boring it looks. None of that green screen stuff. No virtual backgrounds. That doesn't look authentic. I hate that word, but real, and has weird jaggedy edges, right? Just set it up the way I'm kind of framed. Bit of room underneath for the subtitles, not too much headroom. Crisp sound. Get to be honest, half the time a phone will do better than a webcam. I'm lucky. I've got a good webcam. I've got a microphone that, all right, the purists might not like, but yes, he'll do the job for today, right? But a lot of the time, a phone will do better. So you can send somebody a device that holds the phone in place, because that will usually be sharper sound and sharper video than most webcams will provide. And as long as you do that in front of a plain background, you'll get what you need. People dispit plain backgrounds. I like them because I can put any graphics I want without them kind of clashing against anything. But people want to see where you live. As long as it's all right. If it's really, really messy and you're self-conscious, okay, fair enough. But if it's a representation of where you live and it's nothing terrible, then show it off. People will accept that's a real person's house. And that makes you look more real. And that helps the person that you're doing the testimonial for.
The big drive now is shorts. Everyone is talking about shorts because you have TikTok and YouTube shorts. What's your thoughts on them yourself?
Depending on where you use the video, it might work for shorts and it might work longer for a website, for example. People go to your website, they've invested longer in checking you out, so you can show it there. People have gone on your LinkedIn page, like your profile, they've invested a little bit more time, so you can maybe show a slightly longer one, maybe even 2 minutes, depending on how much good quality footage you've crammed in there. When you're getting onto social feeds, where people are being interrupted, or you're doing adverts, especially adverts really short, adverts anything 30 seconds to a minute. Social feeds, you can probably do the 90-minute thing. Stories are becoming big at the moment, obviously, and I would use them all over, not just one platform, but the 90-second thing works, But the key thing is quality of feedback. A lot of people will do a whole testimonial interview of about 20 minutes and they'll use a tiny bit of it and then they'll chuck away the rest. It's worth looking at the rest of that stuff to see if there's any social clips that you can pull out of it that throw a little bit more interesting shade on the other aspects of how you help people. Sometimes what they say on a social clip might be too big for the main testimonial video you make, but some of the more, like but for the social clips that you're doing, it's probably good stuff. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Tell me this, look, we're coming to the end here. I have a question here. What would you get wrong to get right if you could change things?
In what sense? Forgive me, I'm terrible with the abstracts.
In your life, what did you get wrong to get right?
What did I get wrong to get right? Well, I'm a hypochondriac. So, that's not rational for most people. And I am literally like paranoid for my health. But because of that, I left England when COVID was going through the roof in December, and they kind of let it get to that stage. If I'd not fled England, I wouldn't be here. And my family wouldn't be coming to visit me. So technically, people think I'm irrational, but I've done all right out of it.
Well, you've moved to a good part of the world anyway. So,
no complaints.
No complaints on that. If someone wants to use your services or connect with you, Tommy, where would they connect with you and how?
My name's a Google whack. If they look up Tommy Mershid Parish on Google or LinkedIn, they'll find me straight away. You know, my websites are conversionsforcoaches.com and convertmorechaseless.com. It's pretty easy to find.
Cool. And on that note, what book would you recommend for someone to read?
I'll go left field here. Most people will recommend a typical business book, right? And if it was going to be that one, I'd say The Go-Giver or The Go-Giver Sells More by Bob Burg or John David Mann. However, there's one that not many people have read at all about the art of sending cards and postcards and cheering people up that way, which I think is a really good one, called Human Connection by Cody Bateman. And the cards I've sent to people of advanced relationships I've had in business by years. And a lot of the kind of little skills that I learned about doing that came from that book. And I think that's kind of an underappreciated aspect of building, you know, business relationships that bring you good clients and open amazing doors in life.
Yeah, we do write handwritten letters when we send out a book or something to some of our clients. And they get in touch with us, oh my God, can't believe I got a handwritten letter. Shocked, you know, because everything else is digital. So yeah, we'll definitely check that book out ourselves as well. Anyway, Tommy, look, thanks for coming on the show and good chatting to you, and take care and enjoy that beautiful weather in Malta.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Take care.